When I opened that email, I expected spam. What I got was a video that made my stomach turn. There she was, my wife Brenda, laughing, touching, and way too close with someone I knew way too well. The camera caught every angle like it was planned. I didn't blink. I didn't yell. I just sat there, watching my entire marriage rot in high definition. I hit pause halfway through. My chest felt heavy, but my hands were steady. I leaned back in the old desk chair in my garage office, staring at the cracked ceiling tiles. The sender used some anonymous name, Pissed Off 999. No other message. Just, you deserve to know. Thing is, I already felt something was off. Brenda, my wife of almost 11 years, had been distant. Not angry, just distracted. She's a fitness trainer, and over the past few months, her classes were running later and later. She used to FaceTime the kids between sessions. That stopped too. I blamed stress. I blamed the job. I blamed myself. I never imagined I'd be blaming Rick. Rick Jenkins, my sister Sarah's husband, volunteer firefighter, Mr. Community Hero, the guy I used to fix up trucks with in high school, the guy I trusted around my kids, my brother-in-law, my friend. I picked up my phone, thought about calling Brenda right then, but I didn't. Instead, I called Sarah. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. You got a minute? She heard it. That edge. That weight. 10 minutes later, she was on my front porch. Still in her school clothes from teaching 6th grade, her eyes scanned my face. What's going on? I showed her the video. I didn't say a word. She didn't make it more than 20 seconds in before she looked away, hand over her mouth. No, that can't be, she whispered. But the camera didn't lie. Neither did their voices, their laughs. The way Rick grabbed Brenda's waist like it was the most natural thing in the world. Her face turned pale. She blinked fast like she was trying to reset her brain. They've been using some apartment, I said, voice low. No clue whose. Not ours. Not theirs. Sarah dropped into the chair next to me, stunned. She was always working late. I thought it was spin class. Rick said he had night drills. And I believed him. We sat there in silence for a long minute. My dog barked in the backyard. Somewhere down the street, someone was mowing their lawn. The world didn't stop, but ours just had. You're not confronting her yet, are you? Sarah asked. No, not yet. I want to know everything before I make a move. She nodded. Then I'm in. We figure it out together. Right then, I realized something important. This wasn't just about a broken marriage. This was a team betrayal. They didn't just betray us, they mocked us, lied to our faces, in our homes, around our kids. I walked out back to clear my head. The boys, Ethan, 15, and Levi, 13, were tossing a football. Brenda's daughter, Lily, 14, was sitting on the porch swing, watching quietly. I knew I couldn't say anything yet. Not until I had proof, not just a video clip. Not until I understood the why. And definitely not until I figured out what to do about the kids. Later that night, Brenda came home like it was any other Tuesday. Smiling, kissed me on the cheek. I could still smell that same perfume she wore on our first date. That memory hit harder than the video. We had dinner, chicken stir-fry. She asked about the boys' school projects, scrolled her phone between bites, and told Lily to clean up after. I kept my eyes on her hands, her ring, still on her finger. When she turned in for bed, I told her I had some bookkeeping to finish in the garage. She smiled like nothing was wrong. At midnight, my phone buzzed again. Another email. Same sender. You're going to want to see this. New attachment. Audio file. I plugged in earbuds, sat alone in my car, and hit play. Brenda's voice. You think Rob suspects anything? Rick? Not a chance. He's too busy fixing engines to notice what's happening right under his nose. Brenda laughed. I almost feel bad. Almost. I hit stop. I couldn't listen to another second. Not yet. I stared at the phone, jaw clenched so hard it hurt. This wasn't just physical. It was personal. They were laughing at me, Sarah, at everything we thought we had. I didn't sleep that night. Neither did Sarah. We started digging. If they were dumb enough to joke about it, maybe they were dumb enough to leave a trail. The next morning, Levi knocked on the garage door with his phone in hand. "Dad, I need to tell you something." He hesitated. Ethan walked up behind him, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "We already know." "Know what?" I asked. Levi handed me his phone. "About Mom. About Uncle Rick. And we can prove it." I stood there, staring at my son's phone, unsure if I was more shocked that he knew, or that he had evidence. Ethan stepped forward. "We've known for a while, Dad. Not everything. But enough." I looked between the two of them. Levi looked nervous. Ethan looked angry. "How?" I asked, voice low. Levi swallowed hard. "It started a few months ago. Mom and Uncle Rick, he started showing up at Lily's school to pick her up for your wife when she had class. But Lily never asked for a ride. One day we went with her to surprise Mom at the gym." Ethan cut in. "She wasn't there. Neither was Rick. And her class wasn't even scheduled that day." Levi nodded. "We thought maybe they went somewhere together, so we opened the location-sharing app she made us install. Said it was for emergencies. And they were both at some random apartment complex on East Walker Avenue," Levi said. "We waited outside for almost an hour. Saw them come out, holding hands, laughing." I sat down on the edge of my workbench, trying to process it all. "You didn't tell me?" I asked. "We weren't sure what to do," Ethan said, finally showing a little softness in his voice. "But we started watching. And we weren't the only ones who noticed something." "What do you mean?" He looked over his shoulder toward the house. "Lily. She knows too. She was crying in her room one night. Said she saw Mom drop Rick off at the gym wearing a hoodie and sunglasses like some kind of movie spy. That stung. Lily was Brenda's daughter from a previous relationship, but I raised her since she was 4. And now she was caught in the wreckage, too." Ethan sat down beside me. "Look, we didn't just watch. We recorded stuff." I turned to him slowly. "Recorded? What exactly?" Levi handed me an envelope. Inside were 3 USB drives, each labeled with dates. Video, audio, stuff from her car's dashcam, too. We even got a photo of Uncle Rick using Mom's keys to get into that apartment. I stared at the drives. My hands felt like they didn't belong to me. Ethan pointed to the envelope. "You don't need to guess anymore. We've got enough to end this." I looked at my boys, my sons, teenagers. They shouldn't have had to carry this. But they did. And they were doing it for me. I nodded. "All right. From now on, we're doing this together." That evening, I sat down with Sarah in her kitchen. The kids were in the next room, pretending to do homework. I showed her the envelope. She opened it, saw the files, and looked at me with a mix of gratitude and fury. "Your boys? They did this?" I nodded. "They weren't just guessing. They caught them." She shook her head in disbelief. And here I was, thinking we were the ones being careful. We plugged in the first drive. There was no dramatic music, no voiceover, just real life unfolding without shame. There was Brenda unlocking the apartment door. Moments later, Rick followed. Their voices were caught on a phone left on the counter. They joked about canceling a family barbecue to spend the night together. Laughed about us never catching on. Sarah paused the video and stood up, pacing. "I swear, I'm going to lose it," she muttered, fists clenched. "We can't go off the rails now," I said. "We've got everything we need. All we have to do is wait a little longer." Sarah stopped pacing and looked at me. "You're right, but we hit them where it hurts. And we do it clean. We met with Jeff, my old college buddy who now worked family law. We didn't tell him everything yet, just that we had solid evidence of infidelity. Jeff reviewed the prenups and grinned. You two hit the jackpot in divorce terms. 20% split for the guilty party, no alimony, no house claims. And if either of you has full custody of the kids, even better." I leaned forward. "And if she tries to fight it?" Jeff shrugged. "Then we show the footage. She folds or we go public. Your choice." Sarah smiled for the first time that day. "Let's plan the landing." The next 48 hours were all business. New bank accounts, card cancellations, lock replacements. Every string we could pull, we pulled it. I emailed Brenda's gym and requested her schedule. She was apparently off the day before. Interesting, considering she claimed she had back-to-back sessions. We weren't just preparing for court. We were pulling the rug out from under them. That night, I sat with Lily. She'd been quiet since the day before. "You okay, sweetheart?" I asked gently. She nodded slowly. "Mom doesn't come home right after class anymore. I don't even ask where she's been." I squeezed her hand. "We're gonna fix this. Can I live with you?" she whispered. That one hit deep. "Of course." She looked up at me. "Even if she says no?" I smiled as calmly as I could. "She doesn't get to decide anymore." By Thursday, everything was set in motion. Sarah and I agreed on one thing: we weren't going to tip our hand until we had control of the board. That meant staying calm, playing the role of unsuspecting spouses while pulling every thread behind the scenes. Brenda had no idea I'd already closed our shared accounts. She kept using the joint card like everything was normal. Sarah's husband, Rick? He was more careful. He used cash. Always cash. Which made sense considering what he was trying to hide. That morning, I stopped by the local credit union. I had already moved my funds into a solo account under my name, but today's visit was about something else. Retrieving 2 safety deposit boxes my grandfather set up when he passed me the garage business. One had backup cash. The other had an external hard drive. I had completely forgotten what was on it, but something told me I'd be glad I checked. When I got back to the house, I plugged in the drive. Most of it was old files, business receipts, tax scans, scan titles. But near the end was a folder labeled, "For emergencies only." Inside, copies of Brenda's prenup, signed and notarized. A scanned letter from her father, Dr. Patel, insisting the agreement be honored if things ever went sideways. I printed it all out, stapled it together, and added it to the file I was building for Jeff. Later that night, Brenda came home all smiles. Said she and a friend from the gym had lunch near downtown and did a little shopping. I glanced at the bags in her hand. "Friend?" I asked casually. "Anyone I know?" She froze just for a second. "Just enough." Stacy. She's new." "I told you about her." She hadn't. I just nodded and helped carry the bags to the bedroom. Sarah called me an hour later. "He just left," she whispered. "Rick?" "Yeah." Came home to grab a charger. Kissed me on the cheek like nothing happened, then left with a gym bag. "You follow him?" "Already on it. Chloe's tracking his phone. He's going to the same place." Chloe was her daughter, 15, sharp, and way too aware of adult lies for her age. She and my boys had synced tracking apps weeks ago when this all started. "He's meeting her tonight," I said. "No doubt. Let's not stop them." That was the moment Sarah and I agreed to go forward with what we joked about days earlier. We wouldn't confront them. We'd serve them. In public. Where it would sting. Jeff scheduled a process server for Friday afternoon. Right at lunch hour. Right at Horizon Rec and Wellness, where Brenda coached her classes and Rick ran occasional firefighter fitness programs. They shared a back office. Cute, right? "You're both protected by the prenups," Jeff reminded us. "Just keep your cool when it happens." That night, Ethan knocked on my bedroom door. "Hey, can I show you something?" He held out his phone. "It's from her car's dashcam." Levi downloaded the files. "This one's from last Tuesday." He hit play. The car was parked, but the mic was still hot. Brenda's voice came through, quiet but clear. "You think he suspects anything?" Rick answered, laughing. "Not a chance. Rob thinks oil changes are the most important thing in the world." Brenda giggled. "I can't believe we've kept this up so long. What if he finds out about the crypto stuff?" Rick replied, "Then we deny everything. Don't be dumb. If he finds out we've been moving money around, we're toast." I stared at the screen, fists clenched. "Crypto stuff?" I asked. Ethan nodded. We didn't know what they meant, but maybe it's something Jeff can dig into. "I'll find out," I said. The next morning was like any other. Brenda kissed me goodbye, said she had a back-to-back class schedule, then left in her usual black gym gear. Sarah and I met up 20 minutes later behind the smoothie shop across the street from the rec center. We watched through her tinted SUV windows as Brenda and Rick stepped out back, laughing. At 12:15, a man in a button-down shirt walked toward the building with a folder in hand. "Showtime," I muttered. 2 minutes later, Rick opened the back door and stepped out into the sun, only to be greeted by the process server. "Rick Jenkins?" the man asked. Rick blinked. Yeah." He took the envelope. "You've been served." Rick stood frozen. Before he could recover, Brenda stepped out behind him. "Brenda Foster?" The man turned and held out a second envelope. She reached out with a fake smile, clearly thinking it was mail or a delivery. "You've also been served." The smile dropped. Her face went pale. Rick looked like someone had knocked the wind out of him. Sarah and I watched from the SUV, silent. My phone buzzed. It was a message from an unknown number. "Check your inbox. It's time." I opened my email. A new video file was waiting. This time, it wasn't just Brenda and Rick laughing in an apartment. It was a full walkthrough of the place. Room by room, personal items, photos, a whiteboard with initials and dates, Brenda's handwriting, Rick's shirt on the couch, and one photo taped to the fridge. A shot of Brenda and Rick, standing on the deck of my father's old cabin up north. I hadn't been there in years. I stared at that final image on the video, the cabin. That cabin wasn't just property. It was my family's place of peace, something my grandfather built with his own hands. I taught Ethan to fish there. Levi caught his first base on that lake. And now, Brenda had taken Rick there, to our place, the one spot untouched by all the noise of the world. The thought of them laughing, sleeping there, doing anything there, burned hotter than anything I'd felt so far. Sarah's voice pulled me back. "Rob, what is it?" I turned the phone so she could see. "No, is that?" "Yeah," I muttered. "They went to the cabin." She shook her head. "They don't even care what they ruin." Back at home, I opened my laptop and looked through the deed and access codes. Brenda never asked me for the cabin key. But I remembered now. I had replaced the lock 2 years ago with a keypad. I kept the code simple. Too simple. Her birthday, of course. They used it without asking, without even mentioning it. Later that day, the aftermath of the divorce filings started rolling in. Brenda called. I didn't answer. Then she texted. "Are you serious? This is how you do it? A public ambush? You're going to regret this." No denial. No apology. Just rage. Then Rick sent a text to Sarah. "You're being manipulated. Don't let Rob blow up both families." That told me everything I needed to know. They still thought they could spin this. Still believed they had room to negotiate. I sent both messages to Jeff. He replied instantly. "Perfect. Keep it all. We'll use every word." That evening, the kids were quiet. Lily sat at the kitchen table, staring at her uneaten pasta. Ethan finally broke the silence. "So, what happens now?" I looked at him, then at Levi, and finally Lily. "Now, we finish what they started." Lily raised her hand slightly, hesitant. Am I going to have to live with her?" I didn't want to answer too quickly, but I also didn't want to lie. "Not if you don't want to. You have a say. Jeff said your voice matters in court." She nodded and went back to slowly pushing food around her plate. A few hours later, as I was sorting through Brenda's file drawer looking for more documents, I found something I didn't expect. An envelope. No label. No stamp. Just thick and heavy. Inside, printed screenshots of several cryptocurrency wallet dashboards. One had over $30,000 in it. Another showed recent transfers, some as recent as last week. And the name on the transfer origin? Jenkins. They were sending each other money digitally. Sarah's theory from earlier clicked into place. Brenda and Rick weren't just having an affair. They were trying to build a separate financial life. Maybe to run. Maybe to hide from consequences. I sent photos of everything to Jeff. His reply, "Rob, this just changed the game." That night, as if she somehow sensed the walls closing in. Brenda showed up at the house unannounced. I heard the knock around 9:30, opened the door and saw her standing there, arms crossed, face twisted with fake calm. "We need to talk." I stepped aside but didn't say a word. She walked in like she still lived there, paused in the entryway like she was expecting to be greeted differently. "I saw what you did," she said. "Serving me at work? What were you trying to prove?" "That I'm not stupid," I replied. "That I know. All of it." She looked shaken for half a second, then put her mask back on. "You're making a mistake. You don't understand what you're throwing away." "I understand perfectly." I pulled out my phone and pressed play. Her voice filled the room. "You think Rob suspects anything?" Rick's voice followed. "Not a chance." Her eyes widened. "Where did you get that?" "Doesn't matter," I said. "It's enough." She shifted gears fast. "Look, maybe things got off track, but we can work through this. You don't have to blow everything up." She tried to step closer. I stepped back. "We're past that." Then she tried something I didn't expect. "Fine. If you want out, let's talk terms. But I want to be clear. I'm not leaving with nothing. You owe me more than 20%. I laughed. "You signed the prenup, and you broke it." Her face hardened. "You think you're the only one with secrets? Try me." That's when she said it. "You should ask your sister why she's really so upset. Rick's not the only one who stepped outside the lines." I narrowed my eyes. "What does that mean?" She smiled faintly. "You'll figure it out." Then she turned and walked out. The door clicked shut behind her, but her words hung in the air like smoke. "Ask your sister why she's really so upset." What did that even mean? Was Brenda bluffing? Or was she trying to divide us? Me and Sarah, now that her own support system was crumbling? I didn't like games, but I hated half-truths even more. I pulled up my phone and called Sarah. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, she just left," I said. "Came to the house. Tried to negotiate." Sarah let out a quiet breath. "Of course she did. She also said something weird. Something about you." There was a pause on the line. "What exactly did she say?" "That Rick wasn't the only one who stepped out of bounds. That I should ask you why you're really upset." Silence. "I'm asking," I said, a little more sharply than I meant to. Another breath. Then she spoke. "I didn't cheat, Rob. I never said you did. But you're holding something back." She hesitated. "Okay, yeah, but not what you think." I sat down on the edge of my bed. "Talk to me. I found out about Rick months ago." "Sort of." "What do you mean, sort of?" "He was acting strange. Texting nonstop. Staying late at work even when there weren't any drills. One night I followed him. I didn't tell anyone. Not even Chloe. And he met someone in a car. I didn't see her face, but I had a pretty strong guess. When he got home that night, I checked his wallet. There was a hotel keycard tucked behind his credit card. Why didn't you tell me?" "Because I didn't want to believe it. And because part of me hoped it was just a phase. A stupid mistake." I let the words sit for a second. "So why now?" She sighed. "Because the moment you showed me that video, everything clicked. It wasn't just betrayal. It was deliberate. They planned it. They enjoyed it." I believed her. But that little crack in our communication had shaken something. Just enough to remind me, everyone has their own breaking point. And their own secrets. That weekend, Jeff arranged a preliminary meeting between us and the opposing attorney, Brad Landers. Brad walked in late, already annoyed, with Rick and Brenda trailing behind him. They looked like two people who just crawled out of a PR nightmare, and they probably had. Horizon Rec had suspended both of them, pending an investigation into unauthorized facility usage. Jeff greeted Brad with a smile that could cut glass. "Glad you could make it," he said. "We're here to go over the documentation you requested." Brad sat down without returning the smile. "Let's get to it." Jeff slid over 2 folders, one for each of them. Inside, copies of the prenup, detailed asset lists, and highlights from the voice recordings. Rick picked up the papers, read the first line, and dropped them like they were hot. You recorded us? Brenda leaned over to whisper something to him, but he pushed her hand away. Jeff stayed calm. Let's be clear. You recorded yourselves. We simply received the material. Who sent it? Brad asked. Anonymous source, Jeff replied. That's irrelevant. What is relevant is this. My clients have rock-solid prenups, and you both violated them in spectacular fashion. Rick was fuming now. I'm not losing my retirement over some edited audio clips. Jeff smiled. They're not edited. And if you'd like to test that theory in court, I welcome it. Brenda flipped through the papers. This can't be all you have. Jeff raised an eyebrow. Would you like me to show the court the full video of your visit to Rob's family cabin? Or should we stick to the gym footage? Brenda went still. Rick cursed under his breath. Sarah and I just sat there. Brad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. Let's cut through this. What are you offering? I spoke for the first time. 80% of all shared assets go to us, per the agreement. You keep your cars, whatever's in your individual accounts, and whatever personal property you can pack in a box. Rick leaned forward. You think you're going to get the kids too? Sarah spoke evenly. They've already made their choice. Brenda snapped. They're minors. They don't get to decide. Sarah didn't even blink. They're not babies, Brenda. They're teenagers. And they're angry. You lied to them. You used them. And worst of all, you underestimated them. Brad tried to steer things back. Okay, enough. Let's talk numbers. That's when Jeff dropped the real bomb. We found 2 undisclosed digital wallets with over $60,000 transferred between them. One was created with Rick's ID, the other under an alias Brenda used during college. Rick's jaw dropped. That's not possible. Jeff handed over the screenshots. Tell it to the judge. Brenda looked like she'd just been slapped. Who gave you those? Jeff smirked. Let's just say, your secrets aren't as private as you think. They sat in silence, cornered, trapped. And then, as if the air had been sucked out of the room, Rick stood up and muttered, I need a minute. Brenda looked over at him, furious. You said it was secure. He shook his head. It was supposed to be. Without a word, he walked out. Brenda turned to me. This isn't over. I looked her in the eye. It is for me. Rick never came back into the meeting room. Brenda just sat there, arms folded, grinding her teeth like she was chewing glass. Brad flipped through the paperwork again, slower this time, as if stalling would somehow change the facts. Sarah sat beside me, calm but stone-faced, the kind of quiet that made people uncomfortable. She didn't have to say a word. She'd already won the moment Brenda started talking. 60,000? Brad muttered, tapping the digital wallet printouts. Where'd that come from? Brenda didn't answer, just stared at me like I'd personally orchestrated her downfall. She wasn't wrong. Jeff closed the folder slowly. We'll give you until Monday to accept the terms. If not, we go to court. And I promise you, we'll show everything. Brenda stood up abruptly. We'll see ourselves out. Brad followed, but not before saying quietly, we'll be in touch. When they were gone, Sarah exhaled and leaned back in her chair. Well, that was satisfying. I'd say therapeutic, Jeff added. But the real fun starts when we list property values. I'll send a certified evaluator to the house this week. Back at home, I let the kids know how it went. Ethan and Levi didn't say much, but they looked relieved. Lily just nodded and went back to scrolling through her phone, earbuds in. I knew she was listening to music, but she kept glancing at me like she was waiting for permission to talk. Later that night, she knocked softly on my office door. Can I come in? Of course. She stepped in, clutching her tablet. I've been looking at court stuff. About custody. My stomach tightened. You don't have to worry about that. It's not your job to figure out the legal parts. She shook her head. I know. I want to say it out loud. I don't want to live with her. I nodded. I'll make sure of that. She hesitated. Even if she tries to fight it? I smiled softly. I've got the best evidence anyone could ask for. She looked down. She used to be different, you know? I know. I don't even think she realizes how much she's changed. That hit me, because she was right. Brenda used to be soft, funny, a little chaotic but always present. Somewhere along the way, she turned into someone else. Someone careful. Someone cold. People make choices, I said. Sometimes they don't even realize they've made them until it's too late. Do you hate her? I paused. I don't feel anything anymore. She nodded. That's probably worse. I didn't argue. The next day, Jeff called. Got an interesting update for you. Go on. Remember that burner email? Pissed off 999? Yeah. It came from an encrypted proxy, but one of my tech guys was able to trace the original IP to a public library in Mesa. Guess who has library cards there? My heart started to pound. Rick. Not quite. Brenda's old roommate from college. Names on the crypto wallet alias too. You think she helped them set it up? More likely she built it. Probably under the table. That explained the security. The confidence. But it also meant they didn't just stumble into this mess. They planned it. Had help. Thought they could outmaneuver everyone. Until they couldn't. Sarah and I decided to move fast. We set the property evaluation meeting for Thursday morning. She brought Chloe. I brought Ethan and Levi. Even Lily came, though she mostly stayed near the doorway, arms crossed. The appraiser, an older man with wire-rimmed glasses and a tablet, walked room to room, logging item values. The boys followed him like security guards. You think they'll come back? Levi asked me. They might try. They better not, Ethan muttered. I still haven't forgotten what Rick said about you. Me? He told Brenda in one of the videos that you were too slow to notice anything. That's why they weren't worried. I clenched my jaw. They thought we were stupid, Ethan added. But they didn't count on us watching their every move. That night, another envelope arrived. Unmarked. No return address. Inside was a photo. Brenda and Rick. Holding hands. Smiling. On the back was a short note. For the record, they went back to the cabin. This was last weekend. My hands started shaking. Not out of anger, but out of something colder. Contempt. They had no shame. Even after getting caught. Even after being served. They went back to the place where our family used to go to get away from the world, and claimed it as their own. I called Jeff. Change of plans. I want that cabin evaluated. I want it locked down. You think they're planning to take it? They already are. Sarah and I met the sheriff the next morning. With ownership documents in hand, we filed a trespassing report. The sheriff made a few calls. That night, Rick and Brenda were escorted off the property. Sarah texted me just one word. Evicted. I stared at my screen for a long time. If this was a war, we weren't just winning. We were taking back everything they stole. By the end of that week, we'd taken back almost everything. Control of the accounts, the property, the narrative. But there was one thing we couldn't take back. The way the kids looked at their parents now. And that was the part that really cut. Lily started sleeping with her door locked. She never used to. She barely touched the phone Brenda gave her last Christmas. Didn't even want to charge it. She asked for a cheap flip phone. Said she didn't want anything that tracked her. Ethan, who used to talk about Rick like a second uncle, stopped bringing up the garage projects they'd worked on together. Levi erased Rick's number from his contacts without being asked. These weren't just reactions. These were rejections. And the worst part? Brenda and Rick didn't even notice. Monday morning came fast. Jeff filed an emergency order for property separation and presented the evidence of crypto movement, trespassing, and cohabitation. That last one was big. Since Rick and Brenda had been living together at the cabin, and previously at the apartment, it nullified any claim that their relationship started after separation. They couldn't deny it. We had timestamps, photos, security footage, GPS data, and their own words. Later that day, the court granted us temporary full custody. Sarah and I didn't cheer. We just let out the breaths we'd been holding in for weeks. That night, Sarah came over. Not for strategy. Not for paperwork. Just to sit. We took beers out to the back porch. Let the kids watch some movie in the living room. and sat in silence under the string lights I still hadn't taken down since last summer. "I still don't get it," Sarah finally said. "Why them? Why us?" I didn't have an answer, but I said the one thing I knew to be true. They didn't fall into this. They chose it. She nodded. Over and over. Then she pulled out her phone. I almost forgot. Chloe found something. She opened an app, handed me her phone. Rick left his iCloud backup running. I blinked. He what? She logged into it with his old password. "You're not gonna believe what's on there." I scrolled through the gallery. Photos, voice memos, screen recordings. But one folder stood out. Plan B. Inside were scanned copies of paperwork, travel confirmations, Airbnb reservations, and a digital receipt for 2 airline tickets to Costa Rica dated 2 weeks from now. Under aliases. I looked at her. They were going to disappear. Looks like it. I scrolled further. There was a note in Rick's handwriting. "If this blows up, we go." They didn't just betray us. They tried to escape us. The next morning, Jeff submitted the new findings. The judge agreed to expedite the case. At this point, Brenda and Rick stopped responding directly. Brad handled everything. And from what Jeff told me, even he was getting tired of their evasive answers. "They're going to fold," Jeff said over the phone. "But they'll try to save face. Just expect one last stunt." That last stunt came exactly 2 days later. I was working late at the shop when Brenda pulled into the lot. She didn't get out of the car at first. Just sat there. Then the door opened, and she stepped out slowly. No makeup. No earrings. Wearing the same hoodie she used to wear on weekends when we take the kids hiking. I met her halfway. "Rob!" Her voice cracked. "Please, can we talk?" I crossed my arms. "Go ahead." She didn't speak right away. Just stood there, eyes wet, hands shaking. "I messed up." I stayed silent. "I thought." She looked down. "I thought it was harmless at first. Just someone to vent to. Then it became something else." I kept staring. "And I kept thinking you'd never find out. That maybe I could control it." That line hit me harder than I expected. "You weren't trying to fix the marriage," I said. "You were just trying to manage the damage." She nodded. "I loved you, Rob. I still do." "No, Brenda. You loved the version of me who made your life comfortable. Who didn't ask too many questions. Who trusted you completely." She blinked fast. "I didn't plan to fall for him. You didn't trip either." We stood there, surrounded by the quiet hum of the street lamps and the distant sound of a car idling at the gas station. "What do you want from me?" I finally asked. She wiped her cheek. "I just want the kids to forgive me." I took a breath. "Then you better show them the version of you who admits everything. No excuses. No spin. I'm afraid they won't believe me. Then prove it's not another performance." She turned to leave, then looked back. "You were a good man, Rob. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner." I watched her walk to her car and drive off into the night. Part of me wanted to feel something, but all I felt was the relief of knowing I didn't need to anymore. The final hearing was set for the following Friday. It would be the first and last time all of us would be in the same room since the truth came out. Not a dinner table. Not a family reunion. A courtroom. And this time, everything would be on record. Sarah and I arrived early. Jeff was already waiting in the hallway, reviewing a small binder full of neatly labeled tabs. One for finances. One for custody. One for digital evidence. One simply labeled, "Damage." "You ready?" Jeff asked. I nodded. Sarah didn't speak, just gave him a curt nod. A few minutes later, Brenda and Rick arrived with Brad trailing behind. Brenda looked like she hadn't slept in days. Rick looked like he was trying to hold himself together with duct tape and pride. No eye contact. No greetings. Just tension. The kids waited outside the courtroom. Jeff had advised against having them inside unless the judge specifically asked for their input. But they insisted on being there. Not to speak, just to witness. At 9:05 a.m., Judge Goodman walked in. No robe. Just a button-up, sleeves rolled, glasses halfway down his nose. A small-town judge who handled big decisions with a blunt approach. All right, he said, settling into his seat. Let's make this efficient. What followed was a calm, methodical takedown of Rick and Brenda's arguments. Every excuse they brought up, denied. Every attempt to spin their story, shut down. At one point, Rick tried to argue that the crypto transfers were gifts. Jeff didn't even blink. Then why the alias? Why the secrecy? Why the deleted messages? Silence. Brenda tried to bring up the kids. Said they were being manipulated against her. Judge Goodman raised a hand. Ms. Foster, all 3 children requested to submit letters. I've read them. They were articulate, respectful, and devastating. Brenda's mouth dropped slightly, but she didn't argue further. The judge looked over his glasses at Rick. Mr. Jenkins, I've reviewed the digital accounts, the cabin trespass, and the job suspensions. Is there anything else you'd like to clarify? Rick looked at the floor. No, Your Honor. Goodman turned to us. Mr. Foster, Ms. Jenkins, any closing thoughts? I glanced at Sarah. She gave a tiny nod. I stood up. Only that we didn't come here for revenge. We came to stop the damage. We've done that. Now we want to move forward. With our kids, and with our lives. Sarah stood beside me. We're not asking for pity or punishment. Just fairness. And peace. The judge sat quietly for a moment, then closed his folder. Based on the evidence, the agreements, and the complete lack of meaningful rebuttal, I'm granting the petition in full. He turned to Brenda and Rick. You will receive 20% of community assets as outlined in the prenup. No alimony. No spousal support. He turned to us. Full legal and physical custody of the children is awarded to the petitioners. Visitation to be determined by the minors, and may be supervised at their discretion. Then he leaned forward. And one more thing. Everyone in the room leaned slightly in. Don't come back in here 6 months from now asking to reopen this. You made choices. Now you live with them. He stood, collected his files, and walked out. Just like that, it was done. No dramatic outburst. No final scene. Just closure. Out in the hall, the kids stood as we walked out. Ethan and Levi gave me small nods. Lily walked straight to Sarah and wrapped her arms around her waist. Then, after a pause, she turned and hugged me too. We stepped outside into the sunlight, and for the first time in what felt like months, it didn't feel heavy. Rick and Brenda exited minutes later, their expressions unreadable. Brenda glanced at Lily, but Lily didn't meet her eyes. Rick looked at Ethan. Hey, he said softly. Ethan stepped behind me without a word. Rick's face dropped. They walked to their car and drove off without looking back. At dinner that night, the kids asked if they could sit together on the couch instead of at the table. We let them. They put on a movie, something light, something easy. I looked around the room. Sarah sitting in the corner chair, Chloe curled up next to her, Levi and Ethan sharing popcorn, Lily with her legs draped over the armrest. This wasn't what any of us planned, but it was finally ours. Later, as I turned off the porch light, my phone buzzed. A new message from Pissed Off 999. Check the drive. They're trying again. Attached was a zip file. I hesitated, downloaded it, opened it. Inside, screenshots of new email aliases, PayPal transaction under a fake name, a burner Airbnb reservation, and one line of text beneath it all. They're still lying. The folder wasn't big, but the implications were. Fake names. A new Airbnb rental, this time in a cabin upstate near the border. Transactions routed through shadowed accounts. Prepaid cards. Hotel check-ins just 2 counties over. It wasn't subtle. It was desperate. And it told me one thing clearly. Brenda and Rick hadn't learned a thing. I forwarded the files to Jeff with a note. They're still at it. Looks like another escape plan. Within minutes, he called. They don't stop, do they? Nope, I said. And I don't want them dragging the kids into another lie. I'll file a motion to freeze any future joint-related accounts they try to create or use. It won't be bulletproof, but it'll put up a wall. Good. Jeff hesitated. You okay? I didn't answer right away. I think I'm tired of waiting for the next lie. It's like playing chess with people who think they're still on the checkers board. He chuckled. You've got the high ground now, Rob. Let them scramble. That night, Sarah and I sat in my garage with the bay doors open, watching a thunderstorm roll in across the desert sky. The smell of oil and rain mixed in the air. The boys were inside making nachos, and Chloe had taken Lily to a friend's for the evening. It was one of those rare quiet moments. I got another message from our anonymous friend, I said, breaking the silence. Sarah raised an eyebrow. The phantom investigator strikes again. I nodded. This time, Brenda and Rick are trying to run the same play again. New location, different names, same pattern. She leaned back in her chair. They're really incapable of being honest. Apparently. Should we do something about it? I looked out at the street. I don't think we need to anymore. Every move they make now just proves we were right. If the kids ever doubt it, there's always more proof. She didn't respond, just sipped her drink and watched the lightning fork across the sky. A few days later, I called Lily out to the garage while I was working on an old Mustang rebuild. She sat on the rolling stool near my toolbox. What's up? You've been quiet lately. She shrugged. Just thinking. About. She hesitated. Mom. She texted me again. I paused, wiped my hands on a rag. What did she say? That she misses me. That things are complicated. That you and Aunt Sarah turned us against her. I swallowed hard. What do you think? She looked down. I don't know. I mean, she used to make pancakes on Sundays. She taught me how to braid my hair. I didn't think someone like that could do something so. She couldn't even say it. Bad. I offered. She nodded. She didn't just do something bad, Lily, I said gently. She kept doing it. She knew it would hurt us. She just thought she could keep it from happening by hiding it. She looked up. Do you think people like that can change? I didn't answer right away. I think people can change. But not all of them want to. That seemed to settle something in her face. She nodded slowly, stood, and gave me a small, quiet hug before heading back inside. That evening, the five of us, me, Sarah, Ethan, Levi, and Lily, had dinner together. Burgers on the grill, music low, no talk about courtrooms or recordings or apartments. Just stories, laughter, eye contact. A few weeks later, the final settlement meeting took place. This time, it wasn't in court. It was just us, Jeff, and a mediator. Brenda and Rick didn't even show. Their lawyer came alone with signed papers and a half-hearted apology. Everything was official. The property, the accounts, the custody, even the retirement shares. Sarah leaned over mid-meeting and whispered, "We're really free now." It didn't hit me right then. Not until I drove home alone, windows down, air warm, music loud. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't replaying conversations or plotting responses or thinking about what someone might be hiding. I was just driving. At home, Ethan was working on homework. Levi was helping Chloe with a school project. Lily was sitting on the porch swing, earbuds in but eyes up, watching the stars blink on. I walked past them all, paused at the front door, and looked back. They looked settled, stable, peaceful. Brenda still texted sometimes. Rick tried once or twice too, but we didn't respond. The court order gave them visitation rights on paper, but the kids never used them. That silence? That was their answer. 6 months later, the dust wasn't just settled. It was part of the floor. The house felt lived in again, but in a new way. There was less tension, less whispering behind doors. The laughter wasn't cautious anymore. The kind that had once been polite was now real, loud, unfiltered. Ethan started working part-time at the garage after school. Levi joined the robotics team. Lily tried out for drama club and landed a speaking role. First time she'd ever volunteered for something like that. They were all moving forward, each in their own way. As for me, I was still running the shop. Still fixing cars, still dealing with the occasional 1992 Dodge that fought back like it had feelings. But now there was space in my head again. Space to breathe, think, plan. Sarah and I never made anything official. We didn't need to. We were family now, glued together by crisis, not romance. And that worked just fine. One Saturday morning, I was out front watering the dusty front lawn when a car I didn't recognize pulled into the driveway. A rental. Brenda stepped out. She looked different. Not worse, not better. Just like someone who no longer lived in the same world. She took a cautious step forward. "Hi." I turned off the hose. "What are you doing here?" "I just want to talk. Just a minute." I didn't say yes, but I didn't say no either. She walked up slowly, stopping short of the porch. "I wanted to see Lily. She's not here." It was true. She was at a weekend retreat with her drama group. But even if she had been home, the answer would have been the same. "She doesn't respond to my messages," Brenda said, voice shaky. "She's not ready." Brenda nodded, eyes darting toward the house like she expected someone to come out and yell. "I've been doing therapy. Online mostly. Trying to understand everything I did. Why I did it." I said nothing. "I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I'm trying." I looked her in the eye. "Are you trying to be better? Or are you just trying to feel better?" That stopped her. No quick reply. Just silence. "I don't know," she finally said. "Then I suggest you figure that out before you knock on anyone else's door." She nodded again, lips pressed tight, and turned to leave. When the car pulled away, I didn't feel satisfaction. Just clarity. Some things you fix. Some things you walk away from. Rick never showed up. We heard through the grapevine he moved states. Took a job at a small-town fire station where no one knew his name. Chloe told Sarah he sent a birthday card. And signed. The kids didn't mention it. They'd already moved past the point where his name triggered anything. And that was the real ending. Not the courtroom. Not the cabin eviction. Not even the confrontation. It was the silence that followed. That's how you know when a storm's really over. You can hear the air again. You can rest. One night, I sat on the back porch with Levi. He was staring at the stars like he always did when his mind was working overtime. "Dad." "Yeah. Do you think they ever loved us? Like, really?" I thought about it for a second. "I think they loved who we were when it was easy. When we didn't ask questions. When we didn't need more from them." He nodded. "But not when it got hard." "No. And that's how you know the difference." He leaned back inside. "I'm never gonna forget it." "You don't have to," I said. "Just don't let it shape who you become." He nodded again, slower this time. That was enough. We sat there a while longer, not saying much. Just listening to the quiet. No new messages. No threats. No anonymous videos. Just peace. And we earned it. Every second of it.